Hey everyone, I'm Grandmaster Ben Feingold. We're streaming live, and like the first half of the candidates, we're putting the games on YouTube as I stream. So some of these games were played yesterday or 2 days ago, and some of them were played about a week ago. The first half of the candidates had 11 decisive games. I made a recap video of each game. And the second half, which is round 9 to 14, wow, 500 Norwegian crowns. That's at least $10 minimum. I have no idea what that is. Somebody look it up and tell me. Thanks for the donation. That's 500's a lot, I think. 500 of any amount is a lot, of any currency, except rupees. Thanks for the donation. The second half, thus far, there's one round left, only has 5 decisive games. I assume in the last round of the candidates, there will be 4 quick draws since the tournament's over. Nobody's playing for anything, they just want to leave. $538.61. That seems unlikely. But if it's true, thank you, Little Bear. Yeah, Bonarici wrong as usual. Well, $53. All right. Thanks for the huge donation. We appreciate it. Anyway, so this is the first game of the second half. This is the only game that Hikaru won. Out of 14 games, Hikaru gets lucky once, then wins a game, then trash talks. But mainly his chess has been trash this tournament. He's just not playing well. He's old. He's washed. And this is his last candidates. And now he'll just play Title Tuesday, I guess, the rest of his life. And stream and rage and stuff. And make content and rage bait and stuff like that. Anyway, so in real life, evil always beats good. In the movies, good beats evil. So probably the biggest good versus evil would be either Hans playing anybody or Hikaru playing anybody. So when people like Hikaru and Shanklin and Hans play, I know who to root for, but when they play each other, I'm confused. Anyway, it's trying to learn. Okay, so Hikaru's white against Fabi. This was in round 8, second half of the tournament. They played symmetrical English. Okay, and this isn't a very common line. Typically, in symmetrical English, white plays g3, bishop g2. So bishop f4 is a weird move. Now, e5 doesn't win a piece because white can take on c6 and then take on e5. Okay, so Fabi played d5. And we get some kind of Queen's Gambit-esque type position where black doesn't have any problems except for his 2 isolated pawns. Black has a nice knight in the center, which Hikaru would like to get rid of. Also, the bishop's hanging. So Hikaru always retreats. And then this position is more or less equal. Hikaru doesn't really have good opening prep. He doesn't get an advantage out of the opening because his prep isn't very good. Hikaru, 95% of his chess is blitz and bullet, so he doesn't really need any prep. But when he plays slow chess, if you want to beat 2,700 players, occasionally you have to get an advantage out of the opening. And I would say, of all the players in the world who are 2,750 plus, probably Hikaru has the worst preparation. Never gets an advantage with white or black. And that's why he struggled to draw a lot of games this tournament. And it's hard to beat people like Fabi from equal positions, so he doesn't win very much, which, of course, this game was the exception. The exception proves the rule. Okay. Also, for reasons I don't understand, Fabi seems to have a bad record against Hikaru. Sometimes when styles clash, who knows. Okay, so this is pretty boring. Now the pawn structure is the same. Queen takes pawn doesn't win a rook because of bishop d7. So engine just says all zeros. And this is pretty boring, and commentators thought this would be a boring draw. Obviously, black's rook on a6 is not well placed, but white doesn't really have any advantages to speak of. Always retreat. Hikaru's retreating a lot. Bishop d2, queen c2. No wonder he won. Okay, bishop c5. Engine doesn't like bishop c5 very much, but it still says everything's a draw. c4 is explosive. Hikaru always retreating and playing the explosive c4. He's a good student. Okay, engine says completely equal. Nobody's better. Boring. Never play f6. So in this game, Hikaru retreated with bishop d2 and queen c2. He played the explosive c4, and Fabi never played f6. So this explains the result of the game. The engine says black should play h6, getting luft. Actually, says it's about equal. Wait, we got 100 crowns from the same guy who gave 500 crowns. I'm getting a lot of Norwegian money. Thanks for the donations. Thanks for supporting the stream. It looks like YouTube were doing this. YouTube supporting the stream. Okay, so they trade down to this drawn ending, but obviously and frankly, white's better because the rook's on a6. And the engine just says it's a draw because the engine literally doesn't care. And he plays rook b8, activating his rook, sacrificing a pawn. The engine agrees and says that's the proper way to draw. Rook b2. The engine slightly prefers king f7, but says rook b2 is a way to hold the draw. Rook e7 is the best move. Hikaru wants to double up on the bubble up. Okay, and it says this is a draw. It says white has no advantage. Now in this position, the engine wants black to play a move that no human would ever play. Rook b7. Totally nonsensical move, but just keeping the white rook off the 7th rank, sacrificing another pawn. It says it's equal. The second best move is a4. Okay, he played rook takes a2, which is a human move, but the engine doesn't like that because now white can try to double on the 7th rank. When black's rooks were doubled on the b file, rook d1 would run into rook b1. Now white can safely make luft and then double on the 7th rank. Now white's actually slightly better. So Fabi's only mistake this game was taking this pawn so far. Still a draw. Okay, and the engine hates h5 and thinks that black is probably lost now. Again, the engine wants to play a non-human move, wants to play rook b2, giving away the a-pawn with the sole intention of playing rook b7 and stopping Hikaru from doubling rooks on the 7th. I mean, the engine didn't even want to take on a2. It just wanted to keep the rooks here to stop white from doubling on the 7th. But Fabi literally didn't care. Played h5, giving his king luft. Yeah, and now Hikaru's going to go here and here. And the engine says white's winning now. So rook takes a2 was a mistake, and h5 is the losing move. And from technically an equal position. Fabi's been outplayed by Hikaru in the double rook ending, making a couple of mistakes. Rook takes a2, h5, and now white's winning. Rook d8 check is the only winning move. It's better than doubling the rooks right away. Both sides have double rooks on the 7th, but black has 4 isolated pawns, which means they can all be attacked and captured, and black's king is worse off than white's king as far as the mating net's concerned. After king h6, black is in a mating net because white plays h4 and white's threatening rook h7, rook g7 mate. I'll show you guys because maybe you can't visualize it in your head. Okay, now if black plays like a4, trying to make a queen, then white has mate in 2. Or if you're my student, then you could check and then check again and then mate. Always repeat. Okay, so Fabi didn't like king h6 because h4 is annoying. So he played king h8. That's the engine move. Now we get some of those loose pawns. Okay, and then these pawns are all weak. Truth hurts. You can't defend them. If you lose all your pawns, you're going to lose. And you can't defend any of your pawns. And in the end, Fabi lost all his pawns. So, there's nothing you can do in those situations. Okay, and the engine just says that black loses. Fabi played the engine move, rook f4, attack Hikaru's pawns. But yeah, there's more black pawns hanging than white. And the engine just says white's up too many pawns. And the rest was technique with white 2 pawns ahead. If this pawn on e4 was on f3, that's actually a theoretical draw. It doesn't mean that he would draw. It means that a computer would draw. H and f pawns without any extenuating circumstances is a draw, but a lot of grandmasters lose it because they don't know how to draw. Although I would guess Fabi and Hikaru know their H and F pawn theory. However, this is not H and F pawn. This is H and E pawn. That's winning. Pawns are too far apart. And eventually, white moves the king up. Black tries to check from the side. Black's waiting for white to move the king up so that he can check from the side here. So Hikaru leaves his pawn on e4. Then this king and pawn ending, which didn't happen, is a win for white. So Fabi didn't fall for that. And now black resigned because my king's going to walk up and my pawn's going to block the checks from the side. And the engine says plus 10 for white. Hikaru was in the endgame here, for anyone wondering. So, in that game, Hikaru always retreated, played the explosive c4, and Fabi played f6. So, terrible. So, that was the only game in the candidates that Hikaru won. He won an equal ending against Fabi when Fabi made a couple of mistakes.